everybody, and welcome to the first primary English webinar for the British Schools of the Middle East. My name is Carla Lamora. I'm head of year at Stafford Community School, and I'm also part of the leadership team here as well. Today's webinar is titled Supporting the Reading of Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 children below age-related expectations. We are delighted to welcome Natalie Clayton as our guest speaker today. Natalie is Head of English for Early Years, Prep and Pre-Prep at Brighton College, Dubai. She is also Consultant Trainer for Ruth Miskin Literacy, one of the UK's leading authorities on teaching reading. Natalie will be sharing with us strategies on how to teach young pupils to read accurately, blend orally in preparation for reading. She will also share information on how to teach pupils to be accurate and fluent readers, as well as how to teach them how to read with confidence and speed too. Please share your questions and comments in the chat bar below. I will monitor these, and then we'll have a questions and answer session at the end of Natalie's webinar. Please remember this webinar is recorded, so you can refer back to it at any point throughout the session or with your colleagues in the future. And please remember to share this webinar with your colleagues. It will be available on the BSME website. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to you, Natalie. Good luck, and I hope you all enjoy it.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Natalie.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Just a bit glitchy then. Good afternoon. Thanks for that introduction, Carla. I'm Natalie, and as you say, I'm a teacher at Brighton College. I'm head of English at Brighton, where I have been for 2 years. And prior to that, and included in that time, I'm also a consultant trainer for Ruth Miskin. I've been a consultant trainer for 13 years now, both in Dubai and in the northwest of England, and beyond actually sometimes. So it's a pleasure to speak to you today and speak with you about how important reading is for all our children and what we can do in our schools to ensure that we leave no child behind. So here we go. We've got some intervention strategies and support ideas for teaching those students that we've got in our school reading below their age-related expectations. Here we go. I'm going to start with this brilliant quote from Marianne Wolfe, where she says, "Reading transforms the life of every reader." Is there a way I can? Reading transforms the human brain, which transforms the mind, which transforms the life of every reader. So, reading for us teachers has become so automatic, so effortless, that we forget how we have acquired this remarkable feat. We're unaware of the huge amount of processing that's involved in our own reading. What we've got to remember is reading was only invented a few thousand years ago. And although our brains as human beings are maybe hardwired for speaking and for hearing, it's not hardwired for reading. So a brain has to change radically in order to become a reading brain. It needs to create brand new circuits and structures. It needs to, and of course for some brains, it takes longer than others. And of course we know that, otherwise we wouldn't be here today. Just in the same way that for some of us, it takes longer to learn to play an instrument or to learn to tap dance. So in order to learn to read, each brain has to start from scratch. And we're building new circuits one by one. And if we get the wiring wrong, just make that short circuit, we can hinder children's chances to make progress. Now, reading is the single most important thing a child will ever learn at school. Good readers go on to do well in school and well in life, and poor readers don't. And it's as simple as that. And for us as teachers, to deprive children of that remarkable feat is, I'm sure you'll agree with me, unforgivable. So let's talk about how we teach every child how to read and how we ensure that no child gets left behind. Now, learning in the wider curriculum depends on literacy. Pupils who cannot read well enough in Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 do not have access to our full curriculum. The national curriculum tells us that in Key Stage 1, as in Key Stage 1, pupils who are still struggling to decode need to be taught to do this urgently through a rigorous and systematic phonics programme so that they catch up rapidly with their peers. So I'm, of course, going to talk to you about Read, Write, Ink phonics, but whichever programme that you choose to use, you'll naturally see that it's transferable. These skills that we're talking about today in this session are transferable to other programmes, and it's about you really thinking about how you can make this work for your setting. Now, I find this quote from Stahl really interesting, and he says, "We struggle on behalf of the child." So it's our job to do the struggling on behalf of our pupils. And I remember Ruth Miskin saying to us once, we cannot simply say, oh, this child is struggling. The child's not struggling. We're struggling as teachers to reach that child. And that's always really resonated with me. As teachers, of course, when we went into this career, nobody ever said it was going to be easy. But if we don't make a difference and make sure that every pupil learns to read, well, then who will? And I can see, you know, it's obvious we're all here today because that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we make a difference and to focus our attention on getting every pupil reading rather than sort of the reasons of why they can't read. And make sure no one leaves our school and isn't able to read. So we've got phonics and Fresh Start, which I know many of you in this webinar will be really familiar with. But to put it simply, for any phonics program that you're choosing to use, we all do the same thing. We teach our children how to read these sounds. And we want our children reading these sounds as easily as breathing. It's in their bloodstream, they just know it, right? And once our children know those sounds, we then teach them how to read words containing those sounds and how to spell those words as well, but how to read those words. And then once our children are really confident at reading those words accurately and with increasing fluency, we teach our children how to read texts, simple texts, albeit, containing the sounds that they know, alongside learning more new sounds in preparation for books further on in the programme. Now, underneath, you'll see I've got these will be familiar to so many of you, I've got my Read, Write, Ink books at the top, and then, of course, I've got my Fresh Start books at the bottom, which have been written for pupils in years 5 and 6 and above, if invited, that are still on that learning to read journey. Now, let's have a chat about practicing what we know, because we can only, of course, practice what we know. So let's think about a child learning to play the recorder for the very first time, and they're taught these 3 notes, G, A, B. And with those 3 notes, they can play hot cross buns, just with those 3 notes, and they practice this simple tune over and over and over again. And it's always surprising how much pleasure and how much joy just these 3 simple notes bring as the child plays it. And of course, then as they become more confident with those 3, we add a couple more in, and we add a couple more notes in, and before you know it, what have you got? You've got London's Burning. So We can only practice what we know. And that's exactly what we do when we're teaching our children how to read stories. Children read storybooks that contain the sounds that we know as teachers, we know that they can read these sounds. And we know that with only a little help, they'll be able to read every word in every story you give them. And by the time they take it home, they'll be able to go home and celebrate with their parents. Look at what I can read. And they'll know that we never ask them to guess a word, either from the picture or from context. In the same way that we wouldn't ask them to guess musical notes if we hadn't taught them that note in the first instance. So these early texts are below children's comprehension level. And if you read the story to them, they will be able to understand it really easily, unless of course your student is new to English. But this is because they cannot read all the words yet, that they cannot speak. So, you know, these words match the sounds that they know. Another point to remember is that most children do not really focus on the meaning of the story until they can read those words effortlessly. Children read and then they reread these storybooks and they take them home to read again and again, and eventually the speed increases, and with that speed, as it increases, we can start focusing on comprehension. Now, let's have a think about how this looks in school. And we always talk about homogeneous groupings, same ability groupings, okay? If you were learning to ski or to play the violin or to learn to tap dance, you'd be put into a group based on your incremental and cumulative stages so that everyone in the group could make speedy progress together. So the reading leader groups the children according to their phonic stages. Always their reading, not necessarily their writing, or never the writing, always the reading stage. So a teacher or a TA takes one group. And unlike setting these children, it allows us to whisk our children through the settings, irrespective really of their age. There's no downtime in these lessons. There's not the opportunity for any downtime, and pupils are getting their what we call their Goldilocks spot, that challenge level, where it's not too easy, it's not too hard, it's just right. We quickly identify within that group who's ready to move on to the next group, but also at the same time, we're looking for those children who need extra practice. Now, we all know that the sooner we get those children out of the reading gate, the better. They're free to learn whatever organisational system that you use in school, but the reading leader, it's your job to reassess. Now, of course, I'm well aware that our schools here in the UAE and you know, in the Middle East are very, very different to our schools back home, where we have got massive classes. You know, some of our schools are 8 form entry, 9 form entry. So we're really mindful of that. And I have got some ideas to help our reading leaders make sure that no child gets left behind, and also some tips about how to assess later on and how to get sort of a reading and assessment squad together. Okay. So we need to make sure that the group teaching is as strong as it can be, and we need to put our strongest teachers with the keep up groups. I think I've been quoted quite a few times to call my keep up groups my wobbly bobbly group. And I always try and keep my strongest teachers with those children, those really vulnerable children. We've got our eye on them. We know exactly where they are, and we know exactly what we're doing to accelerate their progress. So if we get this right, and we will, if we get this right, this keep up group, then of course this reduces the number of children that will need tutoring dramatically. So there'll be fewer and fewer and fewer children that will need that tutoring. Now let's have a think about why some of our children need our support. Okay. Some of our children, we can all connect with this, have got quite checkered schooling, and I'm sure you're finding that now. You're getting many new arrivals in your school, and that's the joy of being in an international school, isn't it? They arrive on your doorstep one day from all over the world, with different starting points. So we're mindful of that. We've also got to think about those pupils that find it really hard to pay attention. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later on, but finding it really hard. And then there will always be in our schools, pupils with significant special needs, and their journey is a longer journey, but we're here to persevere, and persevere we will, and we'll never give up until we've got every single child reading. So what you'll find, teachers, is that some pupils will catch up in a really short space of time, and they've come to you from a different system, and these children will pick it up. And I find that you can do a bit of pre-tutoring with them as well, and say, look, tomorrow you're going to be learning this sound, tomorrow you're going to be learning how to read this, and let's have a little practice now. And that works really well, pre-tutoring, setting the children up to be successful. But you might also find that you've got those children that do find it hard to pay attention. So what do we do with those children? We sit them exactly where we want to sit them. We've got our eye on them, and we've got our strong teacher with them, and we've got our children that are on those longer journeys. So let's identify those pupils really quickly. So by now, I'm sure in your schools, you've got a list of those children, and you're ready to tutor them. You're ready to all hands on deck. Let's make sure that they keep up with rather than catch up, you know, right from early years, right from FS2, as we call it. Okay, now I want to talk to you a little bit about fast track tutoring. It's exactly what it says on the tin, really. How can we get our pupils through that reading gate as quickly as possible? So fast track tutoring is broken down into smaller steps to accelerate individual pupils' reading progress. And it teaches our pupils to read sounds, words, and it's matched to decodable storybooks. So whichever you choose, we can do this. It teaches pupils at their very, very challenge point, their absolute Goldilocks spot, and it provides intensive, targeted support to address specific gaps until we've got those pupils reading. And we prioritise the reading. Let's prioritise the reading. So there will be children in your school where a reading teacher might say to you, do you know, she's keeping up with the reading. She's fine with the reading in our group. It's the writing I'm worried about. Let's not hold a child back because they're not keeping up with the writing. Let's really make sure that when we're teaching our children how to read, we're measuring progress on reading. Okay. Now, I'm taking you all, stay with me, I'm taking you all to Birmingham, and you're going to meet Ruth. It's not Ruth Miskin, it's a different Ruth. You're going to meet Ruth, and she's tutoring a little delightful girl here called Evelyn. And I just want you to really watch what she does, because you can do this with any words. Let's have a little watch what she does, and then I'm going to talk to you about the theory about why she does what she does and how she gets this successful outcome with Evelyn.
Evelyn, let's read words. Special friends, Fred talk, read the word, watch me. Special friends. Black. Black. Flag. Flag. Special friends, Fred talk, read the word. It's made of paper. Special friends. Oh yes. Special friends. Black. Gran. Stink. Such pause. Foot. Skin. Such pause. I'm gonna do it here. Skin. Frontal skin. Fish friends. Gran. Fish friends. Skin. You worked hard to read that word. What? Okay. Special friends, and to read the word. Okay. No. Skin. You look like some. Black. Sessions. Yeah. Stink. Good one. Gran. Flag. Everyone worked really hard to read those words. Good girl.
Oh, it's lovely. She's lovely, isn't she?
Evelyn.
Oh, hang on. So who can teach fast track tutoring then? We need an enthusiastic and well-trained tutor. And of course, we're very lucky. Our schools are full of these brilliant, enthusiastic members of staff. So we need those, and it can be a teacher, and of course it can be a teacher assistant. Some schools choose 1 or 2 tutors. I tend to find that I choose a tutor across the year group, who work with all the pupils who need extra support, and others allocate pupils to one person who works in their class or their year group, which is what I do. But above all, these tutors must be committed to teaching pupils to read, and you kind of know who they are. They've got this sparkle where you think, you know, you'd be a brilliant tutor. They must know, the children know that the tutor is on their side, and they look forward to the moment that they meet their tutor, because they know that when they're with that tutor, there's success. And of course, we want our tutors to have, you know, a really good attendance record, so that they're in, there's no, you know, they're in and they're there to support that child. So let's have a look. It depends, pupils are tutored, it just depends on their starting point. So I've known pupils to be tutored and within 2 or 3 weeks they've got it. Sometimes it's been within 2 sessions they've got it, you know, particularly if they're learning to blend. For some children, 2 sessions, they're on the blending bus, off you go. Others take obviously longer, and it takes them much longer to master this alphabetic code, whether they've got special educational needs, whether they're a part of inclusion or not. But we can aim at this for our pupils from FS2 all the way up to year 4. in preparation for fresh starts. So here we go. Teach individuals or small groups. So my tip is for 25 minutes. It says here in the afternoon, but of course our days start earlier and finish slightly earlier here. So we do it in the mornings, and sometimes, you know, we pull them out in a place of literacy and things like that. We know that they might struggle to keep up with whole class literacy. So we pull these children out for some extra phonics boost. And we want our pupils, of course, to keep up from the very beginning. So with our early years, it's just 5 minutes. The fewer sounds they know, the less time it takes. So it could be 5 minutes one-to-one tutoring. Now, let me talk to you about what's included in some one-to-one tutoring. You've got your set of pupils then in early years who are in year 1 or in year 2 who don't know the set 1 sounds, as we call them, set 1. Your school might call them the single letter sounds, your ats, dt. Let's make sure that they know these set 1 single letter sounds as easily as breathing. It's in their bloodstream. They don't have to, if they're having to go like this, it's not in their bloodstream. We want to make sure that they can look at it and go, they know it. So let's start with that. And then once the children know 5 sounds, 6 sounds, we're getting somewhere. We can start teaching them how to blend words using the sounds that they know. And only, this is the big thing, we can't ask a child to read a word that contains sounds that they don't know. If they're not speedy enough, it's a bit mean. So let's make sure that we get them blending with the sounds that they do know. Part 3, now my Read Write Ink schools will know it as Word Time 1.1, which of course builds in it's cumulative, it's in its nature. So 1.1 would be words like mad, sad, dad, and eventually it will build up to fox, 6, ship, shop. So we'll start by building up. And what you'll find, and you'll all probably really agree with me now, is that some pupils are okay at CVC. They can read those words, but when we get to words like drip and drop, that's when they find it a bit trickier, like you just saw with Evelyn. And that, I find, is the sticky point. And sometimes I've seen teachers jump onto what we call our set 2s, which are our long vowel sounds, your A, your E, your I's. But actually, have we really embedded those 4-letter, 5-letter, like words like comic, rabbit? They've got no long vowels in, but we need our children to be able to read them. So just be mindful of that as well. Can your pupils read those best friends, as we call them, or special friends, whatever your school chooses to call them? And then let's get them even more confident at reading words with 4, 5 sounds in. Your lemon, comic, that kind of stop, drink, that kind of thing. And then, of course, we're ready. We've got a strong start for teaching set 2 and set 3 sounds, which, of course, are just our long vowel sounds. Words like cake or play, sleep or dream. So can you see the cumulative nature of what you'll do? Now, you'll notice with Ruth, her manners were impeccable, and our pupils need to feel our commitment. They need to know that we'll stick with them until they can read. And this, I think, is really powerful. We talk about the 3 M's. It's your mirror, your model, and your mime. Now, our mirror is we're going to be patient. We're warm, we're gentle, we're calm, smiley, and we're quiet. We listen. We're not over the top loud where we're going, ooh, aren't you clever? Wow, well done, after every action. Because of course, if I'm being really honest, you know, it's not that well done. Like, you've read 1 word and it's not, you know, if we keep saying well done, well done, well done, we're getting lost in too much teacher talk. So what I really, really liked about that video, and I don't know if you picked up on this, but it was really clear when it was Ruth's turn and when it was Evelyn's turn. It was really, really clear. This turn, when the cards were in front of her, it was really clear, it's my turn now. Cards in front of Evelyn, it was her turn. Did you notice as well that when Evelyn started getting a little bit bouncy, because I can imagine her being the sort of character that she would definitely go, do you know my nana? My nana's got a dog, and she'd completely go off on one, and it'd be so easy to get lost in that conversation, wouldn't it? We've all been there, where you've got, has she got a dog? I've got a dog. You know, we do it because these children are so endearing, but it's about, you know, keeping to the task, keeping focused. What do I want you to think about, Evelyn? All I want you to think about right now are these words. And poor Evelyn, she worked her socks off, didn't she? So we're trying not to be too gushy, too excitable, and not too much over the top praise. It loses its value if we do it too much anyway. And again, I like the way she set strong boundaries. So at one point, Evelyn was like this with a heart, wasn't she? And she was like looking like that. And she said, Ruth went, in other words, like, put your hands on your lap. She didn't say it. She didn't need to say it. And I remember when I was first learning and I was first practicing on children, and I think I went through a whole one-to-one session with a little girl in a school in Manchester. And I didn't say a word. I was just modelling. I was miming all the time. I didn't say a word. And when Ruth Miskin watched my video, she went, Natalie, you are allowed to talk, you know. So I think sometimes you're so busy focusing on the steps, you forget to talk. But what was wonderful was you could see the warmth because Ruth was smiling and she was thumbs up. It was silent signals. It was beautiful to watch. We model exactly what we want the pupils to do. And there was a lot of show rather than tell. You'll notice how when she didn't know the word and she wasn't quite sure of the words, Ruth, you know, it was really nice the way that she didn't go, well, what we're going to do next is, because to be honest, what you find is the child's not really that interested in what you're doing next. She knows that you're going to do something, but really I think that when we say what we're going to do next is, we're actually talking our own heads through what we're going to do next rather than what the child's going to do next. So let's show, and avoid asking any questions or narrating and modelling. So modelling through mime. Draw the student in with your eyes and with your smiles and with your, you know, really draw them in that way. And mime how pleased we are when they're successful. So there was a lot of this, wasn't there? Now let's talk about practice and why that really matters. We've got some practice here. Let me see if I've got a little bit of time. Let's have a look. This video has been taken from the Ruth Miskin portal, where this is another Ruth, ironically, actually, and she's going to talk to us about practice. And what she's doing is, and it's something that I do as well, is in school we use 15 minutes once a week. We do it in the morning. I get together with my reading leaders, with my reading teachers, and we have a little practice before we go live on our children, because the children don't deserve to see us learning. They deserve it when we kind of know what we're doing. So we have a practice on each other, and then we go live. And sometimes we're like, oh, you've missed a bit, don't forget to do that bit. You know, we prompt each other and then we encourage each other, but we practice and we empower each other because we want to be the best teachers we can possibly be. So this is the time that's set aside for us to do that.
From the assessment, you'll know that the child can read all the set 1 speed sounds and can read the word time 1.1 to 1.7 phonics green word cards. The child now needs to learn set 2 speed sounds. Each day, you'll teach one new sound and review the ones you've taught before. While the child is learning this, they will start reading the green and purple storybooks. Watch the storybook activities films and read pages 35 onwards in the handbook. Teach the set 3 speed sounds if the child can read all the set 2 speed sounds and words. While the child is learning to read the set 3 speed sounds, they will start to read the pink, orange and yellow storybooks. The steps are the same for teaching both set 2 and set 3 speed sounds. Let's look at read the sound. First, pause the film and read the steps in the handbook on page 25. Now, let's watch a practice film for Read the Sound.
These children look like they're having a lovely time. I want to join in. I'll ask. A, may I play? A, may I play? A, may I play? A, 2 letters, 1 sound. A, special friends. A, 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 may I play? A, may I play? A. Try again. Well done.
Please walk through the steps for Read the Sound using the handbook notes again. Now, practice teaching Read the Sound for A. Use the summary lesson plan on page 26 in your handbook. You will need the A speed sound card and set 1 special friends speed sounds cards to review. Remember, teach as though you have a child next to you and use thumbs up to praise. If you are working with a partner, please take it in turns to teach and coach. Now, practice teaching Read the Sound for E. Use the summary lesson plan on page 29 in your handbook. You will need the E speed sound card and set 2 speed sound cards to review. Now, we'll practice Read phonics green word cards. First, pause the film and read the steps in the handbook on page 25. Now, let's watch a practice film for Read phonics green word cards.
Let's read words. Special friends. Fred talk. Read the word. Special friends. A. A. Play. A. Way. Special friends. Fred talk. Read the word. Special friends. Special friends. A. Fred talk. A. Spray. Special friends. Fred talk. Read the word. Talk, read the word. Oh. Oh. Special friends, read, talk, read the word. Special friends. Great job. I enjoy teaching you.
Please walk through the steps for Read Phonics Green Word cards using the handbook notes again. Now, practice teaching Read Phonic Green Word cards using A words. Use the summary lesson plan on page 26 in your handbook. You will need the A Phonics Green Word cards and 3 word time 1.7 words to review: frog, grin, and stink. Remember to have your speed sounds cards and green word cards ready and teach as though you have a child next to you. Now, practice teaching Read Phonics Green Word cards for E. Use the summary lesson plan on page 29 in your handbook. You will need the E Phonics Green Word cards and some Set 2 green word cards to review. Let's look at Read Nonsense Words. We use nonsense words to assess the child's knowledge of sounds. This challenges the child to read a word we know they've not seen before. First, pause the film and read the steps in the handbook on page 26. Now, let's watch a practice film for Read Nonsense Words.
Nonsense words. Special friends, read, talk, read the word.
Steps for Read Nonsense Words using the handbook notes again. Now, practice teaching Read Nonsense Words using 3 words listed. Now, practice teaching Read Nonsense Words for E. Use 3 words listed in the summary lesson plan on page 29 in your handbook. Write these nonsense words onto cards. Now, let's teach Review the Sounds. First, pause the film and read the steps in the handbook on page 26. Now, let's watch a practice film for Review the Sounds.
Final challenge. Tomorrow.
Please walk through the steps and review the sounds
So I want you to see that how that ability to practice is just so empowering to make sure that you really know what you're doing with your children. So this phonics fast tutoring that we've got here at Read Write Inc. is something that we use with our teachers to make sure that they know how to teach every single child how to read. And of course, it's something that is available. These strategies that you saw Rosie use is something that you can use with any phonics program that you choose to use. We're just being mindful of the fact that we really know the steps and we really know what we want those children to think about. Do we want these children to be accurate reading the sounds and reading those sounds within a word? Do you want those children to be even more fluent at reading words once they've had a practice at reading them a few times? You know, what do we want our children to think about? Accuracy and fluency, which is, of course, is what underpins the national curriculum. And let's just take time as a team to make sure that we all have that excellent practice and we've all been coached to leave no child behind. It's really empowering. And of course, we've got the same principle for fast track for our fresh start pupils in years 5, 6 and above. So those little videos that I was showing you there are taken from the virtual classroom, which many of you will be familiar with once you've had your, if you are a Read Write Inc school. And of course, then we've got online training subscription. So during these times, it's wonderful to have that, that access to this subscription. It really galvanizes the way that we teach reading. And that's what we're doing, isn't it? We're teaching a child to read. And we're keeping those children reading so that we can change everything, and we mean everything. So that marks the end of my presentation, and I'm just here now to see if you've got any questions, basically. Over to you, Carla.
Thank you very much, Natalie. That was really insightful. And what's great is, although you were talking about the Ruth Miskins program, obviously, like you said at the start, you know, you can tailor it to, obviously, if you don't use Ruth Miskins, you don't do Read Write Inc, to other phonics programs as well. And I think as well with us as practitioners, and you know, we are still going through a global pandemic. I think a lot of us still, even after a year of being back in class, realize there are, you know, more gaps in terms of reading. So I think more and more we need to make sure that we go back to the basics and make sure that, you know, phonics, you know, realize how important it is, and it can be used across not just Key Stage 1 and Lower Key Stage 2, you know, it can be for older children as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and analysing words as well, like for example in years, you know, 5, 6, when, you know, years 2 and above, really, when we're thinking about spelling. And if we haven't got that secure phonics background, how can we analyse words for spelling? How can we use those strategies to help us and support us in our writing? So you know, it's two sides of the one coin, really, isn't it? As we all know. And that's what I was really hoping for. I was hoping that no matter what phonics program that you use, the national curriculum tells us that we have to teach our children how to read accurately and fluently. And those clips, albeit Read Write Inc resources, that's exactly what we're doing. We're teaching accuracy and fluency.
Exactly. But thank you so much. It really was insightful, and I'm definitely going to take away some tips for year 3, and I'm going to bring it to the English department as well. So thank you very much. So if anybody has any questions, no one has said anything, but Natalie has very kindly said that she would share her email address. So if you don't have any questions now, if you want to write maybe in the chat bar at the bottom, and then if you do want any questions for Natalie, you know, she is extremely experienced, you know, not just with, you know, Ruth Miskin stuff, you know, she's experienced in other areas as well, but please utilize her. She is here for you if you would like to contact her.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another thing is, again, thank you, Natalie, but let's please remember to share this webinar with your colleagues at school. The recorded version will be available within 1 week on the Primary English Network page. You'll receive an email with the link and any additional resources as well. And as BSB members, you are also eligible to watch the webinars in any of the networks, not just English. So please do contact either myself directly or Natalie if you do have any questions in the future. Our next webinar is on the 17th of November. We will be hearing from Danielle Duffy and Eleanor Hickey, and they'll be focusing on oracy. and they are from the Oracy Hub. So thank you very much, everybody, and we hope you enjoyed the webinar. Thank you.
I'll stay behind a little bit longer if anybody has got any questions.